How's it going, guys? Brian Danoff here, and this sucks. This really sucks. It's been a couple days since we found out, and I'm still kind of numb to the fact that Yankees ace Gerrit Cole has had Tommy John surgery and will miss the entire 2025 season and probably a chunk of 2026 too. Um, it just feels like Yankees fans can't catch a break, and if you're not a Yankees fan, I know that's hilarious, right? The team just went to the World Series. They have Aaron Judge, one of the highest payrolls in baseball every single year. Um, you know, they make the playoffs almost every year. I get it. I've come to understand that Yankee fans are never going to be the plight of Yankee fans is never going to be recognized by other fan bases, and that's fine. But if you're watching this video, you are probably a Yankees fan, so you probably get what I'm saying, right? It's just been, in a lot of ways, a rough last 15, 16 years since 2009, since they won the World Series, since, so many playoff collapses, so many teams that, give you hope and then crush that hope eventually. So many seasons in recent years with just a ton of injuries, just completely derailing things, be it during the regular season or in the playoffs. But here we have, and yet again another terrible wrath of injuries, with Cole now being the latest casualty. And it's definitely changed my outlook on the 2025 Yankees. I don't know how it doesn't for all fans. I mean, going into the year before we knew who was hurt, I really liked the offseason they had, and I said that in my last video. They had a really deep rotation with Cole and Fried and Rodon and Heel and Schmidt. And even, Stroman is like the odd man out, the sixth starter. Now he's like the fourth, which is kind of crazy to think about. Or the third, I should say. And, it's just so hard to kind of wrap your head around it, right? Because it's the season hasn't even started yet. We couldn't even get to opening day with a somewhat healthy roster. And obviously this is a roster that already had a couple holes, already had some depth question marks, and now, that depth is very much depleted. You have Giancarlo Stanton with his bad elbows out indefinitely, as I had a feeling he would be, literally have no timetable. He might still get season-ending surgery as well. So no Cole, no Stanton for a while, no Heel for about half the season at least, as he has a lat strain. And then even, you want to include DJ LeMahieu, who in his first spring training game of the year suffered, I think, a grade 2 calf strain. So things are not looking or feeling great about this year's team. Now, a lot of people and a lot of Yankee fans would argue with me that no, this team is still good. This team is still a playoff team. This team can still win the World Series. And if you feel that way and you have that kind of positive mindset, that optimistic view of things, that is great, and I'm happy for you. But and I don't think anything. I don't think the season is over. I don't, and I actually am excited about certain things with this season. And I'll get to those. But I mean, Gerrit Cole is you cannot overstate how important he has been to the Yankees since he got here. And I am someone who was an early Cole critic, in the sense that I thought still, I mean, I think it's a fact. His 2021 and 2022 seasons were great, but had a significant number of, I would say, ugly moments, right? Not starts, but he would be throwing this great gem, this shutout, and then give up 2-3 home runs in an inning. Maybe that's a bit of exaggeration, but he had a home run problem, I feel like, for the first couple of years when he was a Yankee. And I went and drove from New York to Boston to watch him start that wild card game when he was hurt, when he didn't kind of admit that. And I think it was a hamstring, and he powered through it, tried to pitch for his team, which I do admire, but he got, first inning, right? Wasn't it? Xander Bogaerts, a 3-run home run, and the Yankees lost that game. Then towards the end of 2022, he had a number of great postseason starts. Kind of, it made me realize, I was certainly being maybe probably a little harsh on him. He was still this ace who was still throwing 200 innings a year, for the most part being pretty locked down kind of guy. And then we had his 2023 Cy Young season, which was like, thank God for that, because without that, there literally would have been no reason for me to watch the 2023 Yankees after Aaron Judge got hurt. Watching him pitch every night during that season was very, very special. And it was everything the Yankees had dreamed of when they signed him. It was everything I dreamed of when they signed him back in, December of 2019. Then you get to 2024. He has the elbow scare. You are worried about Tommy John. And he avoids it, comes back in June, isn't quite himself, but eventually settles in, and then goes on a great postseason run again with so many big performances against Kansas City, against Cleveland. In Game 1 of the World Series, pitched his friggin' heart out. Game 1 of the World Series, pitched, a truly great game that no one remembers now. And then, of course, Game 5, which, I feel like I mentioned it in every video, and I don't do it to brag. I was there, of course. There's nothing to brag about. But he looked incredible through the first 5 innings. And to no fault of his own, minus not covering first base, although you can still blame Rizzo, he lost that 5-run lead that he had. And he kind of left the game on a very sour note. But, there was, going into the offseason, there was the opt-out debate. There was the opt-out question, which was crazy because it feels like I remember when he signed the contract and it felt so far away. But after the first 5 years, he had this opt-out where he could either opt out and the Yankees could let him do that, or to stop the opt-out, they could just say, no, we'll just give you 1 more year added on to the rest of your contract. But what ended up happening was kind of this weird thing where Cole opted out, but then the Yankees talked to Cole's agent, and the Yankees basically said, we know you don't want to leave, and we're not comfortable giving you an extra year right now. So do you want to just act like the opt-out doesn't exist and you can just stay on the same exact contract we signed you to? And Cole said, yeah, let's do it. So the Yankees effectively, in a way, chose to re-sign him, but continue the contract, which is 4 years, $144 million. Crazy amount of money. And certainly hindsight is 2020. And now everyone is saying, why did the Yankees do this? Why did Brian Cashman, why did Hal Steinbrenner bring him back if they knew his elbow was already barking and, they had this option to just get out of this contract? I just don't feel like that's fully fair to just second guess that now that he's had Tommy John. Yes, you can look back to his elbow injury last year. Like, that's totally valid to say, why didn't the Yankees give that more thought? I think Brian Cashman even admitted, like, it kind of slipped our mind once we got into the playoffs and they went on that big World Series run. He pitched amazingly. He looked healthy. He looked like Gerrit Cole. I kind of see that. They said they even did an MRI on him that was clean. I mean, they did an MRI. I don't know if it was after the World Series, but around that time. So I don't blame them for not just predicting he's going to have Tommy John surgery, like, a few months after deciding to continue this contract with him. And secondly, which I can't claim this as my own original thought, but I read it in The Athletic. I think it was an article by Brendan Cuddy, who's a fantastic Yankees beat writer. And he brought it up. I mean, the Yankees at the time, when they decided to bring Cole back, were also still full steam ahead at trying to bring back Juan Soto. And can you, if you want to sell Soto on staying in New York and competing for a championship, you would look pretty silly having just let your ace walk out the door. Your powerhouse top 5 pitcher in baseball ace, who had just won the Cy Young a year earlier and certainly has really not shown any signs of aging. I mean, he's had a couple injuries here and there, obviously, and now a pretty big one. But, that's more from mileage, not from performance. I just think back to CC Sabathia, which obviously two very different pitchers in a lot of different ways. But CC had those first 3-4 years where he was elite, and then we saw that super big drop off as, his weight started to fluctuate. He started losing velocity. He was not the same pitcher after like 2012. Gerrit Cole has been the same pitcher and just as good as really when he was with the Astros, minus the sticky stuff, minus the spider tack or whatever you want to call it. Performance-wise, there's been nothing to complain about in the last few years with Gerrit Cole as a Yankee. Really his entire time here, minus, again, the few nitpicks I had with his first couple of years. Also, as a side note, while we're talking about his age, so Gerrit Cole is actually going to be 35 years old going into the 2026 season. He's going to turn 35 in September of this year. And, I think a lot of people, weirdly, I've seen it on Twitter, are like predicting that this is the end of Gerrit Cole's career. I see that overreaction a lot whenever someone gets Tommy John surgery these days, and I don't understand it. I do remember that earlier, when I was growing up watching baseball, Tommy John surgery was not really a universal success across the board. Like, you did have pitchers who came back, had to get a second Tommy John, or just didn't pitch well, had no velocity, and their careers ended early because they had to go and get Tommy John surgery. But I think nowadays, man, everyone who gets it, mostly everyone seems to come back and is at least as good as they were before, if not better. Throwing harder, feeling better, just like overall with their arm. And I think, we've seen a guy like Justin Verlander come back from that around the same age Cole is going to have to. I think Verlander was already older. And he came back and won a Cy Young. So, like, if Verlander can do it, Cole definitely can. That's one thing I'm really not worried about at all with this situation. I think Cole will come back and, at least within, like, the first few months, resemble his old self and still have a solid end to his contract. So that's something I don't think it's worth getting worked up over. I think Cole will come back and he will be Gerrit Cole. There's just so many pitchers pitching well into their late 30s and early 40s now again. And I think he'll be one of them. So, it's and now, there's all this question of, obviously, what do the Yankees do now? What do they do to fill this gigantic hole on their roster and in the rotation? And, and again, there's fans who are chomping at the bit and are mad at Brian Cashman and Hal Steinbrenner for not just immediately going out and magically materializing, Sandy Alcantara into the Yankees clubhouse, or Dylan Cease into the Yankees clubhouse. I mean, it is spring training. It is 2 weeks before opening day. You don't see guys, especially ace pitchers, get traded in at this time of the year. Unless you think of how desperate the Yankees would be from the leverage they would not have going into negotiations like that. I mean, if you want to give up Jason Dominguez right now, if you want to give up Spencer Jones, George Lombard Jr., I mean, if you might have to give up all three of them right now if you want to get Sandy Alcantara from the Marlins, right? Same thing maybe for a guy like Dylan Cease. I mean, I'm probably exaggerating, but the idea, again, is the Yankees have no leverage right now, and I don't think there are teams that willingly want to trade their ace pitchers right before opening day. Now, could those guys be available at the deadline? Yes. And then I think, actually, too, those teams probably would rather move them at the trade deadline anyway, because that's when teams actually get even more desperate, because it is the trade deadline, and these teams see the playoffs on the horizon, and they truly can convince themselves, if we get this guy, we can go on a World Series run, right? So, and that could easily be, I hope it is, the Yankees at the trade deadline. You know, that is the thing. I do want them to make a big move. I don't want them to punt on this season. I still do believe that, yeah, they could. I think right now they still might be an 85 to 90 win team, even without Cole. And that could be enough for a wild card spot. Hell, it could be enough to still win the AL East. When you truly look around the rest of the league, the division, the Red Sox, I think, will be good. I think the Orioles will be better than they were last year. I don't have a lot of confidence in the Blue Jays, but they also made a couple moves, bringing in Anthony Santander actually from the Orioles. So, you know, I think it'll be a competitive division is what I'm trying to say. But I don't think there's like a 100-win team in there, which helps the Yankees in their quest to stay relevant this season and, you know, hopefully be good enough to warrant a trade deadline move or two to maybe push them over the edge and maybe get them on a run where they can repeat as American League champions. I am obviously very sad and disappointed, and I have a lot less confidence in the team than I did before Gerrit Cole got Tommy John surgery. And I don't love the fact that Giancarlo Stanton might be out for maybe still the whole year as well. And if that's the case, they're really, truly in such big trouble that I don't know if there's a way out because of how he performs in the postseason and how much less potent that lineup is without Stanton. You know, and apparently they're looking for another bat, but who knows if that'll happen too before opening day. But like I mentioned earlier, there are things, again, that I am excited about. I am excited to see Jason Dominguez be an everyday player for the Yankees at the plate. His defense, yeah, I'm a little worried about it, but also I think I am confident that his hitting will make that less of an issue, right? I am very excited to see what Max Fried brings to the table now as, you know, now the new Yankees ace for this season. Certainly very familiar and comfortable in that role with having been with Atlanta for the last several years as their ace, their clear-cut number one guy. I have a lot of confidence in him. Same goes for, you know, a guy like Clark Schmidt, who is actually just starting to ramp up and also was dealing with like a cranky back, but he did start the other day. He has a bit of a beard growing, good for him. You know, Carlos Rodon too had a let's face it, a pretty impressive bounce back season, all things considered, last year, and that includes, of course, his decent performances in the postseason as well. So I think the pitching, you know, even with, Heel will be out. It's thin. It's a thin rotation. They can't afford another injury, but I think there's the potential for it to still be decent. And again, Dominguez, I'm very excited to see another full season of Austin Wells as the Yankees, you know, starting catcher. He's been hitting leadoff a lot, hitting a lot of home runs in a leadoff spot in these spring training games. You know, Jazz Chisholm, a full year of him. I think Cody is still very excited for what Cody Bellinger could bring to the table, as well as Paul Goldschmidt. They've both looked pretty decent in spring as well. I know it's spring training. And then, of course, Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge makes the Yankees the Yankees. He makes them worth watching. He makes it worth going to the games still. You know, obviously he became he had such an amazing 2024 season, but he was so paired together with Soto that you almost viewed them as a pair and not, you couldn't marvel quite as much at just what Judge can do on his own. He damn near would have carried the 2023 Yankees, as bad as that team was. He probably would have carried them into the playoffs if he didn't get hurt. and miss, the 50, 60 games that he did. I think that season would have gone a lot differently. I think he probably would have won his second straight MVP, and I think he would have won the last 3 years in a row. I really do. But yeah, so I mean, that was kind of, these were my scattered thoughts on the Gerrit Cole injury. It sucks a lot. I've come to love watching him pitch. Again, he's also made Yankees baseball worth watching. If Cole is starting, I am watching the game. It doesn't really matter what else I could have going on. I'm gonna watch it. It's a big blow. It's a big blow to the team, and I am pessimistic, and I am unsure about what this team's ceiling is. Could things get ugly, and could they really bottom out if, again, another couple injuries hit? Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible. But if they can somehow stay relatively healthy from here on out, make some moves at the trade deadline or earlier if that's needed, I do think the American League is still weak enough where the season is not a lost cause. The season could turn out to still be pretty good. They could still make the playoffs. You never know what can happen once you make the playoffs. And just to throw this out there, not that there's any comparison, the Texas Rangers won the World Series without Jacob deGrom. Right after signing him, he got Tommy John as well. And they won it without him. They won it with Nathan Eovaldi as their ace, So it's possible. It's been done. Do I think it'll happen this year with the Yankees? No. Especially when you look at the National League. Again, I just think if the World Series winner is not coming out of the National League this year, something insane has to have happened. But yeah, so that's about it, guys. Let me know what you think about all this. Am I too negative? Am I too positive? I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of varying opinions out there. I'm trying to be level-headed. I'm trying to not let this completely ruin my excitement for the season, because I still do love baseball. I love baseball. I love the Yankees. I love going to Yankees games. That hasn't changed. It's been, again, I'll maintain it, it's been a rough decade and a half now of all these different things preventing the Yankees from reaching their ultimate goal. Losing Soto sucks. Not that you needed me to say that for the 500th time, but in 2 weeks we'll have the Yankees back every night. And you'll be able to go to a game at Yankee Stadium and have a good time. And I think that's important, especially right now when the world kind of sucks. And they're all other aspects. So thanks for watching, guys. Again, let me know your thoughts. Follow me on Twitter at Brian Danoff. Subscribe if you haven't. And stay tuned for a lot more videos coming up throughout the course of the season. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Go Yankees.